paper I'm presenting is available online. I put it on my blog, and I see that a number of people with Canadian IP addresses have downloaded it. That's a good sign. The paper is experimental, it's conceptual, it's really about throwing ideas out there so we can debate them, perhaps move forward towards some sort of collaborative research project with a view to applying to SURE or some other agency to support some really substantial research that engages with an area of management theory that I find quite interesting. So at the beginning of the paper, I try and establish why the re-emergent field of Canadian business history needs central research questions. I say re-emergent because I'm old enough to remember the sort of last incarnation of the Canadian business history community. There were a series of conferences, some wonderful edited collections came out of that. The last of those conferences took place in Paul Revere in 2002. There are people at this conference I know, such as Graham Taylor, who contributed in major fashion. We stand on their shoulders going forward. But now there is renewed impetus in the field of Canadian business history. There's an organization, there are financial resources, and those are necessary, but not by themselves sufficient preconditions for having a thriving field. What is needed is a greater degree of intellectual coherence. Research questions that we're all debating, arguing about, looking at from different perspectives. We're all having a unified conversation rather than simply talking about companies that happen to be located north of the 49th parallel. So I'm trying to suggest what one of those central research themes might in fact be. What sort of research questions we might be engaging with, and the research question I think would work for our community, work on both an academic and theoretical level, but also on a more pragmatic level, giving coherence and allowing us to get our papers into top journals, publish good books with university presses, apply for research funding, is this. What role did business play in the emergence of multiculturalism in Canada? Canada today is globally recognized as a very successful case of multiculturalism that works. I can tell you that policymakers here in Western Europe are extremely interested in what makes Canada so successful at integrating immigrants from all over the world. The former president of Germany said to Canada's Governor General, David Johnston, how on earth do you do this? How do you have a country where 20% of the population is foreign-born and they all get along quite well? Not perfectly, but certainly better than comparator countries. And there's a lot of literature, the social sciences more generally, and in management in particular, that suggests that business can play a role in promoting ethnic harmony and in helping to break down barriers between different groups, overcoming social cleavages. Those social cleavages can be religious, as in the case of, say, Northern Ireland. They can be racial, based on skin color, as in the case of South Africa, or they can be ethnic or linguistic, as in the case of Belgium. And in Canada, you've got all of those group cleavages and more, and businesses played a role in helping to foster a remarkable degree of harmony in that country. So that's what I'm suggesting ought to be our central research theme going forward. Now, we need to be a bit more precise about our terminology in developing this research question. So, if I was explaining this to a lay audience of non-academics, I would simply say, our research question is, what role did business play in the emergence of multiculturalism in Canada? Now, to be a bit more precise for an academic audience, we have to change the terminology a little bit. Business, that's a very broad term. What is business? Is it big business? Small level of commerce? What exactly is it about business that is doing the work in promoting intergroup harmony? More of what we mean by multiculturalism, as I note in the paper, the definition of multiculturalism is argued debated ad nauseum by a wide range of academics in Canada and abroad. So you get a more focused question that I'm showing on the bottom side of the screen there. Let me just go back to it. Okay. Which is, what role did interethnic economic complementarities play in promoting ethnic harmony in different periods of Canadian history? This is a research question that can apply to about 500 years of reported Canadian history and many different regions of the country, many industries. It's a type of question that the historically minded academics who work in Canadian business schools can engage with, and business historians and history departments. They can also engage with this question. So, as I say, Canadian business history is in need of a theoretically informed central research question. It's going to give our field a degree of coherence. If you've got that coherence, the field would be more successful, objective, regardless of how you measure the performance, the competitive advantage of an academic area of inquiry. So I'll just briefly talk about why I think this is the right research question for our community, or one of the research questions. The Canadian business history community is multidisciplinary. So we've got one history department, various different research agendas. We also have a group of people in Canadian management schools who do what I would regard as business history. Some of them are who come out of the Organization Studies PhD program at the University of Alberta. Others are people who do PhDs in management, Halifax. It is really historical. They're publishing a lot of historical stuff. Their names may be familiar to some of you. I'm thinking of Roy Sudeby, his PhD students, and tech work mainly in business schools in Western Canada. And then there are all the people who are trained by Albert Mills in Halifax, who are doing work that's at the intersection of business history, history of capitalism, and critical management studies. Those people tend to work in business schools in Atlantic Canada. Go to the Atlantic Schools of Business Conference for management academics. In fact, we see a lot of historical research presented. And we need a research question that's going to be appealing to them, the management schools, and the scholars who work in the history departments. It has to be multidisciplinary. The research question has to be theoretically informed and informed by the type of theory that's going to be appealing to peer reviewers and to journal editors at international journals rather than pure Canadian journals. The research question has to be practicable for both qualitative and quantitative research methods. It has to be the type of research question that someone who does a more econometric research say, yeah, I can contribute towards answering that question. And then someone who's purely qualitative can also try to answer. So I suppose we can have a conversation about whether or not the field should talk about the resource curves, gut disease, those sorts of issues that Canada and other natural resources exporting economies. But qualitative researchers aren't well positioned to address those questions, whereas they are able to talk about the research question that I think we should be focusing on here. Research question has to be appealing to journal editors and reviewers, of course, to research councils. In this case, SSHRC is the most relevant one. Will we as businesses, capital, private sector donors, or avoid asking difficult questions simply because it might annoy a donor here or there? We don't want to go out of our way to antagonize private sector donors who support our organization. I think this is a research question that many business people will recognize something that is not threatening, that you can safely allow an academic interested in the role of business and multiculturalism in your corporate archive, and they aren't going to be a breaker who's going to undermine the interests of the corporates. That's absolutely important when you're doing archival research in the headquarters of the corporations. And I also think that our central research question should speak to what's distinctive about Canada, what makes Canada special. Let's try to make a mental list of what Canada different from other comparator countries, other OECD countries. I think kind of research a question that speaks to the special characteristics of Canadians and stuff. And as I said earlier, Canada's been very successful at managing diversity. We perhaps don't want to go too up the edge with some of the academics who talk Canadian exceptionalism. We present Canada as almost a utopian society. Especially in the last year, since the attempt by those social scientists to contrast Canada with, we've seen recently south of the Canada-U.S. border with the rise of xenophobia, with Brexit. There's this tendency among some academics, particularly the United States, to idealize Canada. There's no racism in Canada. That sort of view is clearly untenable. But there is a degree of truth in saying Canada deals with diversity very well, with an amazingly heterogeneous population. And by studying the role of business in this phenomenon, Canadian businesses try to produce papers and books that are useful, not just to Canadians, not just to business people, but to policy makers and academics around the world. How did Canada get to where it is today? How can we replicate that in our country right now? Here's Canadian businesses going to do is it to speak to the role of business in getting Canada. If that's obviously here, I'm obviously referring to alluding to what Barack Obama said when he said to Afghanistan, how can we get in? How can every Western countries get to Canada? Where it started. So it's recently involved research in a variety of social sciences, including science, international relations, but also in sociology, and increasingly in business schools that talks world business promoting the peaceful coexistence of different groups. If you go to the Academy of Management, the annual conference for management academics from around the world, lots of panels that on business and peace. And they're really focused on the role of business in preventing interstate conflict and preventing wars from breaking out. That's related to what I'm talking about, but it's a bit different because I'm more interested in this paper in the prevention of conflict within nation states, not the absence of war between Canada and the United States, but why do Anglophons and Francophones in Canada, generally speaking, get along? Why are they not slaughtering each other in the streets of one country? Well, this is very interesting and powerful thinking that we can harness here with psychology and political science that we can apply in going to corporate archives. So relate the theory and answer some big questions of real social relevance of what's going on right now. So the underlying theory is this, expressed in simple terms. Commercial interdependence between people in different groups is based on complementary resources, promotes harmony, helps us to overcome all those cleavages I talked about before, ethnic, religious, racial, and so forth. You've got a skill set that complements my skill set. By working together, we can create value, both be better off, positive sum gain is created. That type of arrangement is going to promote peace and harmony. It's supported by empirical research in a range of disciplines. It's done in a bunch of different countries. And we see research on the subject being published in sociology journals, science journals, and good history journals. From my perspective, it's most important to publish in management journals with a high impact factor, the FD50 list, and so forth. I think we take this research and get it into those types of journals as well. So I just put on the screen a couple of recent papers that quite operationalize it or think of this series. This paper, Business Prize, it's got a wonderful title. Need, Freed, and Greed. Understanding why business leaders generally are supportive of peace. They don't want to do whatever they can to try and minimize conflicts in their society. The authors point out, well, It's true that occasionally of business leaders who are Quakers and Mennonites, and that's why they decline to form a pacifist point of view, but usually they're concerned about the bottom line. And that's a theory that I applied with Lawrence Musio in a publication that came out in Enterprise and Society last year, really trying to explain why peace between British Empire and the United States was preserved in the 1860s, why the countries didn't go to war, and we document the role of Canadian entrepreneurs in preserving the peace in bringing the demilitarization of the Canada-U.S. border, created which was a positive sum gain for all concerned. Now, as the next slide shows, it's possible to use a highly quantitative approach to you find in the economics department in trying to answer this question, apply this theory. So the first paper was written by a political scientist who now works at Stanford Business School in California. And his work is completely quantitative. So he looks at a 2002 episode in Western India where Hindus were encouraged to go and attack the Muslim minority in that state. Hundreds of people were killed. In some communities, there were these pogroms and the minority was slaughtered. In other communities, basically nothing happened. I mean, it was a bit of violence, but certainly it was much less pronounced than what's in the next town over. What explains that? Well, he places the economic histories of the communities, and some of these communities are trading ties in India, the Middle East ago centuries, and so Hindus and Muslims there saw themselves as business partners, they complemented skill sets, and in those communities, as the theory would predict, we saw relatively little violence in 2002. You can also use the same theory in a more qualitative approach. There's a wonderful paper that's attracting some attention right now that looks at the role of business people in trying to promote on these non-diplomatic, everyday face-to-face level peace or at least better relations between Israelis and Palestinians who live nearby communities. So the role of entrepreneurs there trying to overcome these conflicts. The authors say, yeah, both sides, there are people who try and stir up animosity towards the neighboring group, but the business people say, that's after business, let's try and have some more better political climate. And so in the paper, I've got a section, and I guess it's sort of a thumbnail sketch of 500 years of Canadian business history. It tries to plug this lens, say, okay, how can we take the history of Canadian business using this theory that inter-ethnic economic complementarities tend to produce? We would, of course, talk about the birthday, but certainly saw episodes of violence, but was marked by a partnership. This wonderful book on the history of the fur trade in James Day called Partners and Furs. We saw inter-ethnic economic complementarities between fur traders and First Nations people, and that created peaceful economic exchange between those groups. And then you could look forward to what happened to Francophone merchants in Montreal in conquest when New France became part of the British Empire and forced by the mercantilist system to trade London this French port, and how business helped to overcome the tensions between the vanquished population and the conquered population. I suggest maybe you could look at the baby film, Francophone mercantilist film. Go forward with that, and we can look at more recent periods as well. And I think perhaps you can look at more extremely recent period. I talked in the paper about the Multiculturalism means business initiative launched by the Rooney government in the 1980s. I suggested there's archival material, perhaps a oral history that allows to reconstruct a very recent episode in the history of business. So I sketched out some big ideas, some fairly abstract theory of the paper that I apply it to the overall history of Canada. And then at the end of the paper, say, moving forward, this research agenda by adopting one or two pilot studies where we have it's sufficient for a few really high quality research to convince everybody that this theory is useful in its application to Canadian business. Go to the primary source, preferably a business archive, and try and apply the theory or test the theory against what shows up in primary sources. So we can construct a study, either purely quantitative, purely qualitative, or my preference would be mixed method study to look at per trade, just for the internet, commercial dependency-based supplementary resources actually produces Eastern typo there. But we can also investigate, as I suggested, multiculturalism means business strategies pursued by the government. So, as I said, draft would be very conceptual, very experimental. It's designed to get some debate, to have a conversation about a possible short applications, some sort of collaborative research project. So I've got my email address on the screen there, and I'll leave it on the screen for a minute or so in case anyone wants to scribble it down.